Hello, all. Welcome to another episode of CAPISAR Podcast. Astrologer Nicholas Polimenakos has joined me to talk about the forecast of March 2026. Now that we have crossed the famous or infamous Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries, with that, CAPISAR has also completed the counseling skills class over the weekend of February 13th to 15th, led by Catherine Goshen and Laurie Santonocito. So thanks, Nicholas, for joining. And you were part of the counseling skills, and you are also part of the upcoming ethics training on Feb 28th.
Yes. Yeah. No, thanks for having me back on. Yeah, I was part of the counseling skills. It was great. It was a good class of people. Um, Catherine and Lori did a great job facilitating, and we had really good discussions that came up too, especially with how you're present with clients in sessions, because that's basically counseling skills is uh, some training and practice dealing with active listening, especially, and some of the scenarios that come up with talking with clients. And it's interesting. You don't just talk about it. Most of the weekend, you're in triads, so there's three of you in separate breakout Zoom rooms, and you practice what has been taught before, the techniques with each other. And they seem so simple, but they can be very difficult, but in a great way, in a challenging way. And so the space that was created by Catherine and Laurie felt respectful and safe for us who were in the class to take chances. And it's interesting when you say take chances because a lot of it has to do with listening. And for a Mercury and Gemini like me, I've learned to listen over the years. But still, there were some techniques I tried to stay with and not deviate from. And you realize, how difficult it is. And at the same time, through a step-by-step process through the weekend, you're able to start to retrain your mind and the way
Yeah.
you listen and the cues. So it was an incredible weekend.
All right.
And yeah, it's good for it. And I'm excited, now here we're making this video on the 24th of February. On the 28th, I'm going to be in the ethics training and awareness here on
Yeah.
Saturday with Tara Hall. So currently going through the course right now, the online portion to prepare myself for the weekend and the exam. So yeah, I feel pretty good about it. Uh,
Great. Uh,
yeah.
I will be there as well to support Tara for the
Hmm.
ethics training. But in case people have not taken the slots this time, I think it's very important for astrologers to think about counseling skills and ethics training because these are the two non-astrological facets that are going to hold us for the rest of our astrological career. So it's really
Hmm.
important. I think it's worth mentioning that Capisar is organizing a counseling skills training in person at the UAC on 31st of August. So you might want to check details about that on uacastrology.com, and
Yeah,
you'll
and you
find.
can obviously you could see the schedule there,
Yeah.
and then you can go to capisar.org. You could see the dates, and this is where you would purchase things. I'll say something here. I think whether someone does counseling skills online through Zoom, it's great. But the counseling skills competency exam and the ethics are going to happen at the United Astrology Conference in September. Everything's in person. So that's a whole nother level there in September. So if you're going to be there, let's say you're in the Chicagoland area, actually in the Midwest, you're going to be at the conference a little earlier. You can be.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity to do this in person at the
Yeah.
conference. So, yep,
Sure. So
yep,
hopefully see you all in the UAC.
yeah, I'll be
Uh,
there.
yeah.
I'll be there working.
So before we begin, I just wanted to mention that you can find Nicholas Polimenakos at sparklesofgold.com, and Capisar's website is capisar.org, and their email ID is info@capisar.org. So, with that, let's begin with the astrology of March. I think Feb was a roller coaster of a month, and March is kind of pretty much the same, where we always are greeted with this eclipse. But before that, Mars is entering Pisces, like action oriented January and February, and now things are promising potentially to slow down with Mars in Pisces, but that probably is not the case because at some point Mars will be in conjunction with the North Node, and
Hmm.
it is another explosive, I mean, potentially explosive month.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, what are you thinking with Mars in Pisces?
It's funny you say things slow down. I think that's a theme of the month, but I think it's funny with human beings. We could tell ourselves to slow down, or we can look at the astrology and say it's slowing down, people are still going to double and triple down on initiating and taking actions, and I just that's what people do.
Yeah.
Even if they were to know the astrology or they come to an astrologer, they just can't help but try. But I think it's a if you and I were in a swimming pool and we were going to have a race, not swim, but let's say we were going to walk across. So it was a swimming pool that was very shallow, and we were going to walk across to see who can get there the fastest. Until, if anybody knows, when you're walking through water against this huge body of water, it doesn't really, you don't run to the other side of the pool. And if you even try to with that much force, I think at some point, at the quarter way through, you're exhausted, and I don't think you can move at that point. And so for me, that's how I look at much of the end of February into March, or March, what we're going to deal with Mars and Pisces, and then Mercury retrograde and Pisces, Uh, but that's kind of what comes up for me. So,
Yeah, I think, I mean, slowing down is a seemingly slowing down thing, but really I believe it is kind of an explosive period because of
yeah.
the fact that Mars will closely get into proximity with the North Node, where Pisces is exactly the opposite of rational or logic. There
Yep.
is literally no reason. So Mars in Pisces is not going to look for reason, and when it is closing in with North Node, it's just going to look for opportunities to kind of explode and fight back in terms of whatever it is. So it's a really, I mean, in a way, it is an opportune month in many ways. Even if we see that Mars in water, Mars rules water, one of the waters, Scorpio. So Pisces is not as bad for Mars because even though there is a lot of, uh, you know, logic is defied, but still I think action is kind of guaranteed with Mars in Pisces. And I think overall, it's about motivation to kind of lead forward, despite the fact that there are a few challenges here and there, and also one of the challenges that I see with Mars in Pisces is because I always see the North Node as this symbol of obscurity,
Mm.
right? So when I know some of the Western astrologers think that North Node is expanding, but the North Node is first all about obscurity. It causes eclipse. It's the beginning of the eclipse. So obscurity is the foremost theme of the North Node, and therefore, um, sometimes we need to be very careful about where we are uh, asserting our energy. There is a lot of risk for wasting our energy in the wrong places. Therefore, channeling energy in the right places would be one of those important themes. So we have to make sure that we don't waste time on matters that actually, I mean, don't require prioritizing at that particular point in time. So therefore, it is just important to hold on to to whatever the plan is and not be deviated by anything that kind of distracts or disturbs from behind the scenes or whatever it is, because most of the times before acting, especially with North Node in picture, we are always acting upon something that is not necessarily there. We just assume that something is there. We are being fooled by illusions the visions is not necessarily true. What we may think Gandalf is there, but probably it's Saruman, not Gandalf. So be cautious about.
Yeah, yeah. You put it that way, you got to be very cautious. Yeah, no, I think it's funny, I like what you're saying about the North Node,
Yeah,
and um, I think it's a pacing thing, and try to understand the pacing of March. But in this modern world, um, there's always seems to be a decision to be made in every second and every minute. Like someone has to fill it up or do it, and
yeah,
you have an extra 10 minutes of open space. I must do something with this 10 minutes open space. I think it is. I in particularly like the upcoming month just for the Mercury retrograde itself, because if I were to pick any planet that helped me to understand this and the pacing of it would be Mercury and the aspects, and we're going to talk about those things. But yeah, I feel you. Yeah, again, also too, I think it's a theme that we've talked about on this channel last couple months.
yeah.
With forecast from the transition from what has happened and saying goodbye and letting go to where we're going. And I think with all the transits of Pisces and the aspects with the retrograde, we're definitely at the last review spaces and having to feel that out. And even though, yes, on February 20th, we had the Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries, I feel that it doesn't personally really happen until we get into April. And I think it's mid-April where Mercury will cross over the 29-degree from Pisces to Aries. And I think we're fully in at that point. But until then, uh,
It's just a
we wade,
precursor.
it's precursor. We just wade through the water or you swim deep, you know?
Well, Mars will also get there, which
Yep,
which will usually kind of indicate some form of action. Uh,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Mars ingresses first, then Mercury pulls up behind so many days later, yeah, in April. So, but
yeah.
anyway, we're talking about Mars and Pisces here, and it's on March 2nd
Yes.
where Mars goes into Pisces. I have here 6:15 a.m. Pacific um, on March 2nd. Can we
So
do that?
yeah, that's Mars's ingress into Pisces, which is 9:16 a.m. as of Washington, I think.
Eastern, yeah.
Um, right.
Yeah.
So quite interesting. Like Mars is opposing the lunar eclipse in Virgo, not necessarily the ideal thing. uh,
No.
uh, yeah, but I think one of the important things is that Sun is also in Pisces, closing into North Node with Mars. On the other hand, Sun is the significator of authoritative figures, leadership. Uh, so I don't know if maybe there is some kind of violence or something like that against any authoritative leadership figures, which could potentially spark something. Is also one of those themes that we can bring in from a mundane perspective. But on the other hand, for me, an orb is always the length of a lunar mansion, which is 13 degrees and 20 minutes. So for me, Mars is very much opposing the, I mean, very much part of the nodal axis and also opposing the eclipse, which again indicates a very, very heightened period of emotional sensitivity, especially given the fact that the opposite end is Pisces. And on the other hand, Virgo, like South Node in Virgo in conjunction with Moon, I think it is a battle between disillusionment and uh, holding on to something, whether we need to kind of let go or whether we need to hold on. It's a battle between obsession and disillusion in many ways, from what I see. What do you think, Nicholas?
Well, I think I'm with that, and considering that the lunation here, the moon in Virgo, if we look at the planet that rules this, is Mercury here, and it's already stationed, it's already starting to go backwards. I just I'm I think if we try to discern, if we're trying to discern things too, besides the setup with Mars, and you're trying to discern it, I don't think Mercury, if it was a Mercury in Virgo, they would have all the facts lined up and everything would be logically placed,
Yeah.
oriented, or decided. And here it doesn't happen that way. It doesn't. It's on the opposite end. And so for me, it's it would be hard for me to trust certain situations, certain narratives and storylines presented. Now, if I were to take this in a way of thinking about the last year and a half of eclipses that have happened, and in Pisces, Virgo, this is probably the final chapter of this. There's a lunation that happens later in the year, with the full moon in Pisces, that's going to happen. But at that point, the nodes aren't going to be in Virgo, Pisces, they'll be in Aquarius, Leo. So for me, everything we just talked about, this goes into a longer story of an eclipse story. And I eclipses. So for me, I think it's very hard to discern. Now, can a Virgo archetypal person or player in the story, have they learned in the last year and a half what it's meant to have the south node there?
Yeah.
So for me, from the way I practice, I have they learned it. Sometimes you come back to where you started. It's like if you're gonna go do this eclipse cycle, and it's almost like a south node in Virgo has to go test the waters, and whether they chose to or not, to reach
Yeah.
beyond how they already logically do things, and then they have to go do it. And then if you think about this, ever since the first eclipses that started happening in Pisces, Virgo, if you think about every Mercury retrograde that's happened since then, it's been, I think, part of the story of the Virgo trying to figure out how to do things or to test themselves. And they've come back to this place. And I think sometimes, even after all the learning and the path that these eclipses have taken for the Virgo part of it all, what have you figured it out? And for me,
Yeah.
I think there's still a couple things here they haven't figured it out yet, or it almost comes back to a place of like, well, it's the surrender is what comes up for me. So sometimes
Yeah.
you can't figure it out. Sometimes the words don't come together, or the project that you've been working on, it just, after all the different ways of trying to fix it or advance it, it just kind of dissipates. And so maybe at this place, some people who have been affected by this have learned to, like, how to surrender and be comfortable with something like that. Others may not, and this could be a very harsh transit or lunation. Anyway, that's some frame there.
I think I really like the word that you used, surrender. Thinking about what Virgo can offer is Virgo is all about analytics and rationalism, perfectionism, etc. But I think with South Node, the planet of release, contraction, or withdrawal is basically kind of withdrawing from this idea of perfectionism or rationalism, and especially with Moon there.
Hmm.
I mean, for people, those who have this emotional burden, I think it is important for them to kind of rationally analyze what is slowing them down, and think about consciously let go of something, and release the anxiety that they've been carrying for a very long time. I think in a way it is an opportunity for emotional purification, and also on the other hand, Virgo's health, daily routine, etc. Moon is the significator of habits. So in a way, I think uh, it is an indication, especially for those who have planets in mutable signs, or those
Hmm.
who are going through uh, nodal return, someone like me, or nodal reversals. I think there is a lot to ponder over, so that we can constantly think about what are the habits that we can let go of. Uh, and this eclipse is probably a culmination point where we get a feeling that something that needs to be kind of given up, uh, to kind of practically orient our body to the natural way of life. So I've been trying to kind of reorient my sleeping pattern for a very long time, and hopefully I'm expecting this eclipse. I mean, it's happening 3 degrees shy of my natal south node, so it's a
Oh
very
wow.
crucial eclipse for me. So
If you get a hold of me around that time, you send me a message, you write an email, and it's like a certain time of night, I'm gonna be like, Aspen, go to bed. Like, what do you do, dude? Like, deal with it tomorrow in a couple days. I'm like, dude, what are you, you know? But yeah, no, I like what you said too. Again, I think it's this scenarios that we constructed here. It's an opportunity. There's nothing like letting go of something eventually. Sometimes it's like you don't even realize it's become a burden or stressful, and then
Yeah,
you realize that it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. I just let it go, and it's just nothing like that feeling. There's
yeah,
nothing like surrendering and letting go that way. And again, also considering Mars, North Node, Sun, Mercury, even though it's retrograde, and still Venus at 26 degrees Pisces, I don't think you have a choice. In a sense, I guess a choice, if someone makes a choice, that's logical, right? You're using your brain to make, you're doing yes or no.
yeah,
So sometimes I put it this way, if someone's even struggling between yes or no, and let's say you're standing at the beach, and while you're doing that, going, yes, should I do this or not? Should I do this? A wave just comes and crashes and knocks you down. And then the world decided for you. You didn't
yeah,
even get to say anything about it. It just happens. So yeah, but to go back, maybe from the mundane level, as Mars is coming into this range, I really like the concept that you have of like the space, the lunar mansion space of orb.
yeah,
I volatile. This is very volatile to me. It kind of tags off a story we talked about last month. Remember, we had a lunation there where
yes.
Venus was conjunct the North Node. So here comes Mars doing the same thing here, and it's not just on this day. It will be, pretty much the month of March that we have this theme. So from that level, the sensitivity I think continues, and our awareness of stories in our lives or in the world can be there if you don't have to make decisions.
And the
You know,
nature will make the decisions for us.
that's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
whether we like it or not, I think sometimes we just need to kind of force ourselves into the circumstances and see what really kind of happens.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm with you on that one. Yeah, sometimes again, that's another part of the Piscean world too, is I mean, Virgo does it too. I think that's what they have in common sometimes is the way they go about touching something that's beyond themselves. And there's the efficiency and the need for perfection, I think, in the Virgo story. But that in the sense, if a system is created and adhered to and it's regimented, if it's running efficiently and it's there, it does bring a sense of it's divinatory, like there's a divine sense that could happen, and we know that could happen in the Piscean world too. It's just how they go about it is differently, but in different ways. But I think there's a common goal that they have, as in touching or incorporating something in life, the world, nature,
Yeah.
divinity, and in a sense, I think on either end of those signs, at some point you realize that you're a part of divinity and nature, and you don't have to control it. Like you don't have to control it. That you can have either a Virgo or Pisces can have their version of trusting that space, the world themselves in the world. So
Well,
yeah.
that was nice.
Yeah,
uh,
I got to get up early. The more early I wake up, maybe the better insights I have.
I think
Speaking of
so.
regimens, but yeah, I just want to mention too, Ashwin, really quick because we're here. For those who follow stuff like this, it was August 22nd in 2025 that we had a new moon of Virgo at 0 degrees, and the South Node was at 18 degrees. It was interesting. At that point, we had Saturn and Neptune in the beginning of Aries, but they were going backwards at that point, and it
Yeah.
wasn't. It was happening around that time. So I just want to mention those who work with lunations. Let's say you were at the new moon part 6 months ago. Here we are 6 months later.
Yeah, yeah, I like that
That's
idea.
just
I always try to kind of compare the presence and progress in
hmm
relation to the lunation.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, yeah.
Sorry, Venus in Aries. Yeah, Venus
Oh, you're
is
already there. Yeah, yeah. Venus and Aries. We're talking on the 6th of March, correct?
yes,
Yeah. Well, that's okay. Let me say this. I'm one of these people where I'm paying attention to the periods of time when 29 to 0 happened
right.
from area. And I think it was this point last year we were entering that realm of eclipses last year in 2025, where there was so much movement that happened over the last degrees of Pisces and into Aries and back and forth because we did it. We had eclipses. We had a Mercury retrograde that started in Aries and went back into Pisces. We had a Venus retrograde that started in Aries and went back into Pisces. Around it was March into April, what happened. And so for me, before we jump into this, like each one of these planets, when we go through March, that pretty much gets at the last degree. So we're talking here on March 6th, Venus is going to go into Aries. For me, I'm paying attention to the 2 days before, which we did on the eclipse.
Sure.
We'll pull a chart up here in a second, but I just want to make a note of that. I think that's very important, that movement, that liminal place that happens between 29, the last degree of the zodiac, and then we get to the Aries point. So we hit the Aries point here on the 6th with Venus going into Aries, which is visible, right? It's
Yeah,
recently, help me out with this one, Ashwin, right? Venus
sure.
is
Yeah,
now come out from out of the
yeah,
beams of the sun,
it
basically.
has. Yeah, and one more interesting thing is that Venus was conjunct Saturn in Pisces for over the 2.5 years. But now it's changing. It's moving into Aries, which means
hmm
the relational matters that seemingly appeared better and kind of possible to navigate suddenly seems a little challenging because of Venus's passion that naturally is kind of aggravated in Aries, but still suddenly it finds itself short of resources because Venus in Aries, Venus in fire is not necessarily the most conducive place, and also Venus exactly opposite to the sign that it rules, which means the resources are less for Venus. Venus
hmm
feels in exile in Aries, and over that, being in conjunction with Saturn is kind of slowing down, where we feel this natural push to initiate or take initiatives or move forward in the relational world. uh, Suddenly we kind of see some breaks that we never expected. So for people those who are in relationships, or serious relationships, I think there is a reality check that is kind of kicking in, because Saturn is imposing, naturally, Saturn is imposing heaviness. Saturn is imposing reality. Saturn is imposing structures that needs to be implemented within a relationship where, especially for people who have been going through this honeymoon period of new relationships, I think suddenly the reality starts sinking in, and they need to deal with the realities of the relationship, like the time that they spend together, and everything kind of is going to go through a structure. Sometimes the imposition can be a little challenging or sometimes even consequential, but I think the consequences, if we kind of stay there, it's going to get better, because that is where the relationship gets disciplined. and
hmm
uh, and with Saturn we always find some kind of maturity. So I think that is where I feel like, despite a little bit of frustration, um, I think Venus in Aries with Saturn is a nice setup before Venus enters Taurus. uh, you know
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a thing too. I think anything in Aries, things become unfiltered, and there's a courageousness, a boldness. I think there's been a review period going on in the last year for everybody in the Pisces part of their chart. And then we had grand water trines at the end of the year, and just certain stories, whatever. But I think a lot of it has to do with trying to figure out where one goes next. So let's just say it's Venus, trying to understand what it wants next. It had to do all these stories and enmeshment and come out of it. But then it's like, well, now that I did that and I seen maybe some older habits that I have and they don't necessarily work, and I've had this inner calling for a long time. I just haven't been able to put my finger on it or understand it. Venus goes in Aries, and I think they see what they want in the sense of desire. Like they see something now. Anything in Aries wants to get it now as fast as possible. That doesn't happen here. That just doesn't happen. I think even on its own, I think it can happen for a day, and then it's like someone lights a sky firework, and it seems like everything is in that firework and it gets lit up, and then boom, it's gone within a second, and then it's like nothing ever happened. The burning quick, right? Burning fire. But I think with Saturn here, um, with one sees in relational activities or in finances, something like that, there is a longer path. And if you really do want something or you need something, and it's for how you see yourself in the next phase of being in the world or in life, and you want it to be present, not after just the day, but more long lasting, um, that's where Saturn comes in. And I think can create a situation where you sign the contract, or you set up this rules and the guidelines to try to make this happen, right? And so, as someone born with Saturn Venus conjunction in my chart, even though it's out of sign, I mean, it's less than a day for me. I live this life. I know what it is. I will say that it could be intense. Like one can, if I think about anybody, like in this week, when we're doing March 6th to 7th, that first week, they're going to be dealing with they're going to be born with a Venus Saturn conjunction. Well, Neptune too, but they're going to be born with that. And that could be hard when it comes to looking in the mirror. Someone could say something to me. Let's say someone on the opposite side of me, they're representing the mirror, and they could say, "Hey, Nicholas, that was what you just did was an amazing thing, or what you just said was amazing, blah, blah, blah." And I'm looking at the mirror and I'm thinking, I'm not even thinking that. I'm thinking, but it could have been this. And if I only would have done this, they're very critical oneself. So that's a way a Venus Saturn conjunction can be. And then if you have it in the sign of Aries, typically Aries, there's a sense of all the fire signs have a sense of some sort of pride, or that must show it in the world, but it doesn't necessarily mean that here. Venus Saturn, it could be the opposite. It could seem that way, where there's some hardship that comes with the one how it deals with themselves, the way they look in themselves. And then there's situations that come in life as life goes on where maybe they learned the hard way, or they have to train themselves. They actually have to have a structure to train themselves, like what they say to themselves or who they're around, that supports them, uplifts them, and get the sense of self-worth and their self-esteem, stuff like that. That's a way a Venus Saturn thing could, play out. So on the other end, some of the things that you say too, I think from a long-term basis, we're going to establish something here. And, when you have something established and it feels secure, then when we get to Venus and Taurus, we could start to build on the fruits of something like that.
Reaping the benefit. Exactly. Like, that's right. And also, like, going to the other end of the spectrum, it's like this is for the people who are already in a relationship, but some people are actually coming out of a relationship and dealing with challenges of the aftermath of coming out of the relationship. And for those people, Venus and Saturn could certainly be very, very challenging. People might start questioning their value or worth based on the fact that their relationship had just ended. And that is exactly the thought that people should put behind, because Venus conjunct Saturn is about assessing the value from an inner perspective, not from an external perspective. It doesn't matter what the other person thinks, but it is more about what the self thinks. The perception, the self perception is far more important, and I think it is a good period to kind of consciously try to build that self perception. by kind of not relating ourselves or our value with what the other person or what the external environment thinks. So I just wanted to kind of put this out because I just want to kind of remind one of the Epictetus's thought that not Epictetus but Seneca. It is because of our mind and the perception of what is happening outside is killing us inside, but not really the event itself. So it's important to stay away from the
Mm.
thoughts that are kind of constantly drilling a hole and making it bigger inside our mind. Focusing on something else, that's far more constructive. I won't say productive with Saturn in Aries, but constructive will
Yeah,
be.
I think it's
Yeah.
interesting too because that was a Seneca quote, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you've been reading lately. Okay, I see where you are. I see what's going on here.
It's
So, so, but considering, here, let me just put this chart up. Considering what we're talking about here, uh, perception, it's interesting here with Venus there, but still we have the Piscean story going on. So it's kind of interesting when you said the word perception, like what's on the outside of us. And I think people get to play this out in real time through March, about this comes back to some of the illusions that we've talked about of what's real and what's not with the Piscean story. And then you have Venus entering in here, who's kind of leading this it's the planet that's leading where we're going to next, and they're overlapping.
yeah,
And so I think in this particular area, it's a couple days after the lunation, the eclipse, that we have something like this. I don't think it can be difficult for some people, but for the most part, I like this because it's tangible and it's very real, and
yeah,
it can help us help that story of perception of what's real and what's not. And there might be other things that are still questionable, but maybe in the Aries part of your chart, while this is happening in the story, you get to go somewhere where at least Saturn's there and it's real, and you get to start to at least stand in that place, and take things in from that place. And that can give a little bit more a sense of assuredness, maybe, just a little bit.
yeah.
But yeah,
I think,
yeah,
yeah, or it's a very internally productive phase that we are dealing with through this 6 days that we have spoke about so far.
yeah.
That kind of leads nicely into the conjunction of the Sun and Mercury at 15 degrees of Pisces, which again leads to perception, right? As I always like to kind of think of Sun as the planet of awareness and Mercury as the planet of discernment and intelligence. So when intelligence is coming together with uh, awareness, I think it gets strengthened a lot more. So our perception about ourselves, especially with Venus in Aries, although there is not much connection, I think this is a good period to kind of have this internal communication going more than talking outside. Like self-talk is probably a lot more important. People like to say that Mercury is fallen in Pisces, and obviously it has fallen in Pisces, but there is something that is beautifully very internal with Mercury in Pisces, especially with the sun also going there. And another thing that I tend to disagree with slightly is because people say that Mercury is combust and it is burnt, but Mercury is always very close to the sun. It is its
Hmm.
natural tendency to be close to the sun, and which means that whenever Mercury is very close, it should be seen as as a tool to kind of purify and refine our thought process rather than kind of thinking it as a as a situation of burning or something like that. So it's just a small thing that kind of struck in my mind. So I just wanted to kind of put it out.
No, no, I'm glad that you did, and I'm one of these people where just as a reminder for people watching, whenever we're dealing with the Mercury retrograde story, when we hit this part of the story, which is the midpoint of the retrograde part of the cycle, is when the Sun and Mercury are conjunct. That's the halfway point and all this. So I'm one of these people that have always used Mercury, Sun, Mercury to do something. I launched my Patreon years ago during a Mercury Sun conjunction. This particular case, I am definitely I want to I don't know. I'm gonna make this stuff up as I say it right now. If people are gonna, that's kind of a joke that I just said. I'm gonna make this stuff up as I say it right now. But that's what I'm gonna try to do personally. So I gonna go to my cave or my temple or something that represents that, and I already can hear it. I can hear the music that I want, and I want things that don't have any rough edges. I don't want anything. I don't want anything logical. Actually, I don't want anything like that. I don't want to know about time. I don't want to look at the clock or have an alarm personally. I'd rather be in some other space to let my mind wander and be free and even forget that I'm thinking and I like washing dishes. I washing dishes to me is very meditative. A lot of my insights are either when I'm taking a shower or washing dishes or the walks with the crows.
Yeah.
All that stuff just takes me somewhere else. I don't have to, there's no decision making. It's just this thing of letting things move through me. I'm a conduit, the wind blows through the front door and it goes out the back door. It doesn't matter. There's no judgment. So again, I'm just talking off the top of my head. It's like that kind of thing. To me, that's how I look at this particular or Mercury Sun conjunction in Pisces. Um, that's how I'm going to try to let myself be in, and not everybody can do that, right? They have lives and responsibilities and work and
Yeah.
stuff, but can one take the moment that day, and and I don't know, like have your ritual, Again, we go back to the beginning of this podcast when we were talking about Piscean stories and pacing and things like that. And
Pacing.
then the beginning of the month with the eclipse and what we do. And we're kind of back to this place again. I think it's a little different than what happened on March 3rd with the full moon in Virgo, right? I think it's
Yeah.
different this day, but the moon's in Scorpio, by the way, that day this happens. So yeah. So it's there is a if you really think about this, now that I'm going off the top of my head, and then I'll shut up about this. If you really think about this, if we're looking at the exact here on okay, it's 16 degrees 52 minutes here. It's 3:01 a.m. Pacific, by the way. You can see the moon is in Scorpio, but we're basically in the roughest of ways. When the moon progresses in the next day, it's going to hit 14, 15 degrees. Scorpio, and then we're going to have a grand water trine that's going to happen. We're going to have this moment, and this kind of goes back to the end of last year. But I, in particular, feel like, and we're going to have another moment like this later too, sort of. But I feel like there's just such a place of knowing that can come here that doesn't necessarily have to do with words. And if it does, if it was somehow translated and outputted, maybe it is the haiku that is written, or the song that is written, or it's paint to canvas. That's the way I would look at a particular moment like this, and that's how I would use it. Okay, so there
I
you go. That was
think
my roundabout.
one of those things that you said really kind of hit me so hard is with no words. And sometimes Mercury retrograde very close to the sun. And as I said, it's, you know, our intelligence being further enlightened because of sun's place. Because wherever sun is, sun throws light. Sun is the planet of light. Sun helps to see the unseen, and the areas of intelligence or mercurial matters that we have failed to see so far, that's been lying inside us. Sometimes this is probably one of those times where we actually have the realization. And most of the times when we have realization, it is not always we can put that into words. So the words suddenly fail, especially
Mm,
with Mercury retrograde, it's just the stunning realization where we really kind of don't get to say anything. We just kind of observe. And from the Rigvedic sense, it is like when sun shows something, you don't really argue, you just see, and there is no debate. It's over. And I think that
Hmm.
is the kind of the moment, the emotional perception that we are going to have. Going back to what you said, the later part of 2025, where we had this retrograde in Scorpio, now it is happening in Pisces, the exact trine. So some of the memories that we have been carrying could probably help us find some form of realization that's been lying in obscurity for a while.
Yeah, yeah, and I can remember that retrograde happened. It started in Scorpio, right? We had that
Yes.
Mercury in Scorpio. Again, for those who are looking at the chart, maybe you're putting it together. You're seeing here that Mercury is going at 16 degrees. It's going to go back to 15. We were here on February 16th when we did the first Mercury Jupiter trine when Mercury was moving forward. I almost feel like everything from mid-February to now when it comes to Mercury story comes to this place that there's so much possibly that has been said. As a matter of fact, if I think in my personal world, the days leading up to the fifth for the 15th, by the way, it was the weekend of the counseling skills. It was right after that. We had the
Yeah.
Mercury Jupiter trine. And I think about that day and after, I had so many conversations. I have a lot of clients, a lot of friends. There was so much being communicated. I'm feeling this and I'm trying to understand that. And in my brain, I'm going, this is just the beginning. Mercury hasn't even stationed retrograde yet. Okay, so then we do that, and then we get to this place. And I feel that there's something to go what you're saying, that there's a saying in States or a song, blinded by the light. It's like you want to be blinded actually. You want the sun, like you said, that is what it is, and there is nothing else. It's just the light. And Mercury goes into this temple, and it just basically it's condensed or burned down to its essence. That's what you want to be. You want to be the essence. Usually at the essence, there's no need to discern. It is what it is. So, taking that outlook there and all the conversations that have happened that lead up to this point, politically, things are said, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It changes 2 days later. That's happening in people's personal lives. Then we get to a place like this, and you're like, I'm done with the noise. I'm done with my thoughts or what people have to say. I don't want to, like, I need something else. I want something else. You know, that something else could be right here. And what happens, I think, after here, this is my favorite part of the retrograde cycle because even though Mercury still moves backwards, it's different than it was before it hit the sun, right? So,
For sure.
you know, yeah, yeah. But I really like the stuff you said, like the sun shines a light or whatever, and that's all it is. And if somebody's like sick of their brain doing whatever, you got to have an excuse. You have a watery excuse that is like, I'm not gonna answer the phone, or I'm not gonna do this text. Like let everybody do their thing. I'm here. I'm listening to my music, and or me, I'm washing my dishes. I don't really care. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
know. That's really good.
yeah, yeah,
With that Venus conjunct Neptune,
yeah. We're dealing the same day. Oh no, yeah,
I think
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
just the same day, 26 minutes later.
Hmm. Uh,
Well,
yeah. That's
welcome to the
another
world of
reason.
illusion.
That's another reason to step off or step away or step within. Don't you think, Ashwin?
I don't know. I feel like the themes of dissolution keeps coming back.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Venus and Neptune sitting there, doing it. And then I think it's funny, like Venus moves through Neptune, and it's bringing something from Neptune when it comes to meet Saturn.
Yeah. And immediately
We're
gets
not using
slapped off.
traditionally, we're not using outer body planets, but correct me if I'm wrong here. There's that whole concept of carrying the light. Am I correct by this?
Yeah,
When
it's
like,
yeah, transmission of rays. But here it's carrying
yeah,
the light. That's right.
yeah, yeah. Because
That's right. But
basic.
yeah, Neptune is not a traditional body. But anyway,
Mhm.
I don't know what to make of it.
I think that's a great answer.
Maybe
I think
that's
that,
what Neptune Venus conjunction is.
yeah, no, again, as someone who's got a Venus Neptune aspect exact in my chart, like an opposition, it's not the same, but I think again, I think from the Saturn Neptune point of view, what this means for the world. I think I think if we just think about Venus in itself, what Venus does, like let's just break it down really quick. We're dealing with our senses, right? And the harmonization of our senses and our harmonization in the world. If we're dealing with Venus and Aries, it's not necessarily, I'm going to go back to something you said. You're not necessarily looking on the outside of you per se. It's, the internal. So Venus, Neptune is this harmonization within ourselves.
Yeah.
And, and I think it maybe just has, if for those Neptunian people or into the outer bodies, it maybe has a bigger consciousness or spiritual tone to it all, something more than me, but I am me, that whole thing. And so, that's a very one way to look at this. And that in one sense, Venus moves through Neptune. It's almost like a purification bath or something like
Purification
you would
bath.
think
I
that would
like that.
happen. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's spicy. It's just a little spicy. It's not just like Pisces and stuff. It is Aries. So maybe you walk through the purification bath. It's kind of like when you do hot and cold. You jump into a sauna and you go cold, hot and cold, or you walk across coals or something like that. I don't know, but for me, there's some sort of ritual that happens here, and I think it's otherworldly or beyond or spiritual. I'm only using words like that because people have different ways of looking and using Neptune who use it. But the common thread you're going to hear is something is world consciousness, subconscious, or spiritual. So anyway, I think Venus moves through Neptune and gets to the point of what I had on the screen here. I just like what your answer. I don't know what to say about it, and that's pretty much a Neptunian answer to
Cool.
it. Um, so here is the yeah, that's it. It's like an observance of something. You're just like, oh, cool. But it's here on the it's at 5:39 a.m. You see on the 8th here too, we continue the story that Venus does this exact conjunction with Saturn, and it goes back to part of a conversation that we
Yeah.
were talking about Venus Saturn. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think we did a good job with Saturn conjunction Venus.
yeah, we did.
Uh,
We did. Can I may let's just say one thing to
sure.
this.
Yeah. Why not?
What planet rules Aries? So Mars and Pisces is involved, right? At this particular juncture, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think moments like this, like a seed moment here of Saturn, Venus, and Aries, still has a Piscean overtone or undertone to
Hmm.
it because it's because Mars is in Pisces, you know.
Correct.
So it, again, it's just something to look at. Like if you're looking at the flavor of the conjunction at the time, it still has a Mars and Pisces overtone to it too. So again, it's more of a feeling here to me, and it's all still within. It's
Yeah.
all internal still. Even though it's
Sure.
Aries, I think it's all still inside what's
It's
happening.
channeling the energy inward and reconstructing the inner self with a little bit of love.
Oh, very good. That's awesome, Ashwin. Uh,
I didn't know I was going to say that, but
Yo, no, that's a good one. That's a perfect uh, carousel Instagram post quote.
cool.
Yeah, remember that for your social media, Aswin. Like you could use that one. Like that's a really good one, along with the Seneca quote.
Right. Seneca. Yeah. I like Epictetus and Seneca.
Say that again?
I like Epictetus and Seneca's work.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, I like to think I'm a practicing Stoic, although some people remind me that I'm not.
Yeah, I find it fascinating too that in the last so many years that even people in the tech industries and, I think some who are based science oriented and they base all that and they don't have, let's say, a religion or a practice that way, but like Stoicism has become something. It's become some of their fuel too, of not
Yeah,
just their ideas of what they see for themselves in society, but it's embedded in like how they're in the code that
yeah,
they're building with some of this. And I find it interesting.
yeah,
And there's debates about this too, because it can seem very cold stoicism, right?
yes,
It could seem very cold, and technology can be very, very cold. But I
correct.
think stoicism itself is not cold. I think it does
Yeah,
have feeling, and I think it does have a basis that is real and not logical because it has that connotation that's purely logical. I
yeah,
think technology is cold and logical, robotic.
yeah,
I think Stoicism, and help me on this, like it almost bridges, like a bridge, from internal, external, and back. What do you think about that? It's like, no,
yeah. I think you put it fairly, you know, accurate in an accurate manner because I would say that Stoicism is tending to our inner self without being disturbed by the external circumstances. Like most of the times, what happens is that we always have some kind of a reaction or perception about what is happening externally, and our internal reactions are naturally kind of conditioned by what happens outside. But what Stoicism says is you condition your inside to tend to only yourself and always respond and not react. That is what
mhm,
Stoicism says. So it's about conquering the inner self and believing that the mind is the only thing that we can conquer and nothing else. Whatever happens externally will happen regardless of what we do. So, but the best thing that we can do is control our mind and our response to whatever happens externally so that we are under control. And I think, in a way, Saturn conjunct Venus in Aries
mhm.
is a good beginning if you're thinking about Stoicism. Right? It's a
Yeah,
good
I
place
no,
to
I
start.
think it is too. I think I like how you put that, brought it back. There's one thing I'm going to say to this, though. It's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I think I've seen people take stoicism as an excuse to not have responsibility for their actions in
Oh
the
no.
outside world, and they've used it in certain industries. And there's people who feel who let's say we're in a toxic or demanding relationship, it's not good, and like, well, I'm just taking care of myself, and you take care of yourself, and I was just taking care of myself, and the byproduct of those decisions, how you took that is your thing that you need to process on your own, and I've seen people misuse it because I think you have a responsibility in relationship to the world and with other people, but does it start within oneself? And we try to do that? Yes. And I think that's the part that you're talking about, Ashwin.
Yeah.
But I've seen other people misuse it as an excuse to like do actions or support certain actions that are truly selfishly harmful,
Oh
whether they know it or not, to themselves first, but to other people, and I've seen it misused,
yeah.
like,
No, because
so.
Stoicism is not escapism. Stoicism is taking responsibility for oneself. And if that responsibility is a teaching, it is my responsibility to teach. And I cannot say that I'm a Stoic, and I cannot say that I don't care about the people that I teach. So it is my moral and social responsibility to do that, and
Mhm.
responding to that is my responsibility. And if I don't do
Yeah,
that,
I think if one bring in the world's like words like someone's humble and honorable in a sense,
yeah,
they're standing in that place. I think that's what it's really about, right?
yes,
You're humbled. You're
yeah,
humbled by the journey and by going within and and facing yourself
Yeah.
and knowing that you can do your best work here, starting here first, not just for yourself, but for the world,
Yeah.
right? And so, but I think sometimes some of this is crossed over into, this is my personal opinion, but hypercapitalism and certain things, and it's brought into these realms, and as they're led with that, and it sounds and it looks good, but I've seen it become harmful. It's funny how we ended up here. We went on a tangent, but I don't think it's a tangent. I think it's interesting from the Aries Libra archetype, from the story that happens is the polarity in that sign because we're dealing with self and other. And in order for other or relationship, I think to have a chance or to always move and grow, usually when we're in relationships, whatever kind, and it gets to a challenging area, what we learn, whatever concepts, we have to go back to self.
Yeah.
We go back to self and we go back and we look at ourselves, And like I said earlier, we talked about being a Saturn earlier, what it means for me personally. I'm looking at myself and I can be critical of myself, but we get past that. And I think something like Stoicism can help one to even get past self-criticism,
Yeah.
And then when we get to certain places, when we do step out and we do meet the other, we're coming from a grounded, focused place, and we're giving it the relationship the best chance it can have.
Yeah.
And I think that story between Aries and Libra, and this is going to play out for the next 2.5 years with Saturn in Aries, is how we do that. How do we stand for ourselves, or what do we ask for ourselves, or what you realize what I need for myself to feel like I'm connected to myself in the universe, and
Perfect.
am I? You have then you ask of it in the world, and you put it out there, and sometimes that's where relationships change. It doesn't mean that a relationship has to burn down and can be toxic. Sometimes there's a reality between people, like I'm walking this direction and I must find that, and so are you. And people come to agreement with that. And it can be that's like almost another form of loving, true loving, when there's the truth of self, and then you show that truth of self with each other. Relationships change and they become stronger, or they go their separate ways, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going on a tangent here about the
No, no,
about
it's
Aries.
it's it's nicely kind of leading on to what we're going to talk about.
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah.
and also it kind of leads to some kind of a blurry line with all this. Uh, Thinking about what is going to happen a day or two after that, it's Mars and North Node conjunction,
Hmm.
which is Rahu. Um, Yeah, I think Mars is the planet of action and desire, while Rahu is the planet of amplification and obsession. So it's about dealing with the obsessive desires
Ah.
and also
Uh-huh.
kind of falling prey to actions in a very indecisive or impulsive manner, so to speak. So one of those examples is again going back to Lord of the Rings. Boromir tries to take the ring from Frodo when the Fellowship sets out
Yeah.
on their mission. And it's not that Boromir really wants to kind of do something bad. He actually thinks that he's doing good by taking the ring, and his intention is good. It's not bad, but still, the reality is not really striking him. Basically, he's kind of ruled by emotions, thinking that he's doing good, and he makes a wrong judgment and tries to take the ring from Frodo, and later realizes and eventually kind of gets killed in the battle towards the end of the Fellowship of the Ring. And also, this obsessive desire is Gollum. Gollum's uh, craving for the ring, it never ends, and it
Hmm.
pretty much is there since it got the access to the ring in the goblin tunnels, and it's there until the last scene where in the Return of the King it's actually destroyed. And the last scene is basically, I mean, at least with the ring, it's basically Gollum falls into that fire, and the ring basically kind of goes into Gollum's fingers, and everything is done and dusted by then. And that is,
Yeah.
even then, we don't know that if the obsessive desire or the thirst to have that ring is over or not, and that is Mars and Rahu.
Yeah, and it never ends. The thirst never ends, and that is That is dangerous. It can be
It
dangerous.
is.
Again,
Call him.
yeah, it's that's a great example that you weaved in so naturally, Ashwin, with this. I think about, I feel, in my own life, some of the things that, I was making a joke last night about with some friends, and I was eating some potato chips, and like, don't get Nicholas around potato chips because he won't just have a couple, he'll eat the whole bag. And I'm a Taurus rising. I'm like, yeah. And I think about my life when it comes to pleasures in my life, and I've led such an extreme hard life where I've gone completely sober or something or disconnected, nothing. And then it comes time to having that one thing and I have it, but then I go all in, like all of it. It's like it never ends. So, for me, I think about addictions. I think about people who deal in certain situations or scenarios that are like this where the craving never ends, and you're and
Yeah.
always grabbing, even like you said in the Golem, even into the fire, into nothingness. And so something like Mars Rahu and something like that, yeah, and I should put this up on the screen.
Right.
I think goes to what we were saying too. It's funny to have the Venus in Aries and scenario and everything else, and still have it be ruled by all this. And
Yeah.
maybe that's the lessons here. It could be harsh lessons that one learns, or the byproduct of this. It's like someone who's extremely, after eating a whole bag of sugar, and what they feel like the next day, or they're hungover, or they went on a bender for a week. And then they're coming out of it like, what just happened? Like, why did I do that? And um, but in all seriousness, though, um, I think all of us in our lives have had moments or situations and stories where it's been an endless appetite, and packaged in what seems to be real and what seems to be um, even connected, let's say, to something, or becoming something, or
Yeah.
being with something, you know? We even see this in spiritual faith, people of faith, what people will do. They don't know it, they're in it, but one would say later on they went too far, And so the illusions and things like that, and what it is, it's hard to discern. And I like what you said earlier. People make decisions, and it seems like emotional, it seems like everything, that it's real, and it's intensified here with the North Node. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think Jupiter goes direct on the same day, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, the Jupiter direct
On
was
March
the 2
11th. Yeah.
days before. It was 2 days before, on the 10th or 11th. But yeah, it's still going to be at that grief for a while. And so Jupiter's going direct. It's not that March. We're not even halfway through yet. We're going to get through this forecast, but it's so interesting, Ashwin. Like some of the stuff we're talking about self and action, or indecision and impulse, and what's real and what's not.
Yeah. I
And
think I think it's a battle between what's real and what's not.
yeah, I intuitively looking at this chart, I feel a little sensitive about that week and what's happening there. And I expect we see things in world politics, obviously, building up to this point. Not necessarily going to happen on that day, but building up to this point and after. If we're talking about these interpersonal dynamics, then think if you're having interpersonal dynamics and your illusions, and you're part of a military, or you're part of a government, or part of a faction or a political party, and then you're in this place together trying to make the decisions, and you're coming from emotional places. And it's interesting here with the Jupiter station, because we have this longer story about Jupiter and Cancer, about where we come from, and the lineages and the stories that we carry from our communities and nation states, and what we try to uphold. And then some of it we're upholding or want to, but it's dissolving. It's dissolving in our hand. I mean, how do you hold on to something that's dissolving? and the need to control, and then it's emotional. There's Jupiter in Cancer, it's an emotional thing that goes deep, and it's subconscious or it's habitual. And then you have illusion of what. Anyway, the cocktail around here, what I see here is I think is very challenging and difficult. Um,
Yeah, no, I agree. But on the other hand, I see Jupiter's trine as, you know, on the one hand, there are challenges, but Jupiter's trine is naturally, I think it's going to pave the way for something to manifest and things to move on, despite the fact that there are some challenges and roadblocks, is what I feel.
mhm. I understand. I feel you on that one. It's good that got a couple scenarios that we're talking about here, but I'm ready for this one. I'm happy. It's enough of Jupiter going backwards. I'm feel the station is good, and it's
Yeah,
going to start moving real fast here once we get into April. You know, but I think it's. Um, I like your insights on that, seeing the other side of it. So.
I think
Well,
we have this lunation in Pisces after that.
yeah, we do Mercury Mars. We do Mercury Mars, right?
Yeah. Oh,
And
Mercury,
then
Mars. Oh,
yeah, we
yeah.
do
Mercury
Mercury
conjunct
Mars on the
Mars.
15th. Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
just pull it up really quick. Um, let's see. It's on. I have March 15th here. Yeah, these are days. We're going almost every other day here, these aspects, but they're happening. And so you could see Mercury Mars here at 10 degrees
Yeah.
right
Something
here.
related to hydroelectric power.
Oh, interesting. Hmm. Yeah, could be that.
Could be that.
The other
But I
thing is,
always,
Ashwin, this
yeah.
whole thing with AI, this whole thing with nuclear power, people, it's coming back in certain countries because they're realizing they're having to run these data centers. There's like legislations in the
Yeah.
United States and other parts of the world. This is a thing, and it will be a thing. You
Yeah.
know, yeah.
I think we all know that a lot of water consumption is being done for running the AI and other data center related matters, and it's no coincidence that Mars Mercury conjunction is Pisces is only going to kind of amplify all those things, given the fact that the North Node is still there in Pisces along with Mercury and Mars, so it's not very far after all.
Yeah.
So I remember like Mercury is still retrograde, so we need to keep that in mind as well, just
Hmm.
as a passing thought. And followed by that, to make things even interesting, we have the lunation in Pisces. So there's so much of Pisces here. It's very interesting. And Pisces, the natural sign of dissolution and letting go, is again one of those important things here, where we are forced to kind of break away from things that's probably been holding on, or any older ways of dealing with uh, life, or dealing with matters pertaining to our daily life, is being confronted in many ways. And the South Node's opposition is, at least by sign, it's not a very close orb, but by sign, I think it is a real uh, you know conflict between dissolution and illusion. So, like you mentioned, it's not going to be easy to figure out what is real and what is not real. And one more thing is, like, I've been kind of watching a lot of wildlife videos and then realized that all of it is deep fake AI.
Yeah, exactly. You're seeing some two animals that are never would like come up to each other or something, and they're
Yeah.
interacting with each other and like, wait a second, no, this isn't real.
Oh my God. I think we are
Yeah.
going to have similar kind of realizations, and probably not as funny as watching wildlife, where porcupine basically tears off a python's mouth. But here it is more about the battle between the inner self and the external self, in terms of where we are expanding and where we are being restricted as a result of Venus Saturn conjunction in Pisces. So whatever is building up has something is coming behind, that's pushing us to move forward. But on the other hand, there is something that is also pulling from behind, saying that, okay, no,
Yeah.
you wait.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You know, last night I was at an event and I went to go see a colleague of ours, Rick Levine. He was part of this event, and we're talking about stuff, and he was talking about if Star Trek fans know the Borg. I think that's New Generation, like the Borg concept that we're all connected, like the internet, and where AI is going this Borg mentality, like we're all one, like this external. He was referencing another person way back when it was saying that the internet technology was this external nervous system that we're creating for
Ah,
on the outside, and for some reason it's coming up right now because it's funny what we are projecting out and what people are doing with AI, and it's part of our consciousness because we've created it. It is us. It is a thing that we are creating constantly every day, and we're inputting, we're interacting, and it's learning. But we are the people doing it. It's us. So I think it's interesting here with situation like you created that or somebody else created or you created that together, and um that's the byproduct of what was created. So for me, it's this internal external thing that's going on with Aries, Pisces.
yeah,
To me, there's something that's being played out here. Does AI take over the world? They sure wanted to. There's so much money invested in all this, but it
yeah,
doesn't mean it's going to. And or we don't know exactly what is going to happen. And I think there's a thing of present time of discerning what is real and what's not. I think a suggestion is to understand what is real within oneself first,
yeah,
and then we walk out into the world, right? Um, and a lot of what we're battling or challenging is mostly what's being shown to us through the internet as it become is that you having to discern whether news is real, is it a
mm.
disinformation campaign? We're not even talking about AI, we're talking about news stories because then we have situations where people who are in power have a hold of certain news arms or whatever else, and they're manipulating it, and we have to constantly more than discern if we even have the energy and time to do something like that. So
Precisely.
for me, I think this is an interesting place that we're in here in March because inherently, in the end, what is our ethos or where we stand in the world and how we stand? And we have to keep checking in, I think, within to understand because of what we have to deal with externally. And I
Yeah.
think this does not go away, actually. And I think it becomes even stronger and will be. I actually in the future think a lot of the air and fire that's going to happen, especially with something like Pluto and Aquarius and stuff like that, and Uranus and Gemini, I think people will be making proclamations about where they stand in the world with technology, whether they accept it or not, a rebellion towards it. Some people, other people want more, but in the end, there will be personal proclamations, and I think with one feels sure with what they're proclaiming or what they want. Let's say it comes from the Aries part of their chart, and it starts with Venus, and then it's Mars, eventually Mercury. We'll have that in April, end of March, and in the April, we'll have that. It's like there's a hint of this, like, no, actually, this isn't what I want, and whatever I'm interacting with, it's not real or not. This doesn't feel right. This isn't right. This feels right. And so when somebody's internal and they're getting in touch with themselves, you get a sense of what feels right or
Uh,
what is right for oneself. And
right.
so I think in a situation here, when we're dealing with the new moon, and I'll put the chart back up on the screen, I
Mm.
think we're at this funny place, like the stuff that you brought up, but here we are back at this 28, 29-degree place that we have dealt with for the last year in Pisces, and Mercury on the node. So for me, I'm looking at something like this and I'm personally like I'm getting to a place where like I know what I want and I know what feels right for me, and I intuitively feel it. That's the way I would look at something like this. I think
Sure.
on the other end, the disillusionment obviously can completely be there, where someone thinks they know or feels that they know, but is it back to this illusionary place? Is it based on something that's not real? And so I think one has to have their, and I'm preaching here, but one has to have their practice, or maybe it's Stoicism,
Spiritual
maybe it's
practice.
spiritual practice to help them know where they stand and where they're going to go next and what they're bringing with them from the past. What works, what doesn't, what needs to be let go of. But, more than any other time in the history here of our world, I think knowing where one stands and where they are internally means more than ever. It always has been,
Yeah.
but I think here it's huge. So I could see this very extreme on both ends, but again, at a 28-degree, 29-degree place, um, the last thing I'll say to this is, you know, you've had practice. I think people have had practice with this particular space in astrology, these degrees. You've had practice for a year, you know.
Yeah.
You've had grand water trines. You have all these aspects. You have these eclipses last year, Venus retrograde that went back and forth. Remember all this stuff. It's not. You actually know. I think people are getting to a place where they kind of like get to put to like, wait a second, I do know myself. I do know this, And uh, anyway, that's how I'm feeling about this particular moment.
But
And
this was a very nice discourse on the new moon.
yeah, I just was going with my feeling. I've looked at the chart obviously, but I'm like looking at it and like going off some of the things you said. I'm like, wait a second. Um, but again, the interesting thing, one more technically is that we have a Jupiter station that rules all this,
Yeah.
right?
Uh, Maybe something that kind of holds off everything, the containment.
Yeah, yeah. The Jupiter's kind of holding still,
Yeah.
like it's stationary, and it's gives us a sense of. But for people watching, what I was really getting to is I was talking through Jupiter terms because it rules all the Pisces stuff. That's what I was talking about, like what you said, Astron. What were the words? Spiritual what? Practice?
Spiritual practice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it's finally uh, the one good transit is Sun enters Aries. But it'll be conjunct Saturn. But I feel like Sun Saturn conjunction in Aries is basically kind of throwing light on institutions and institutional authority. Probably something that's not necessarily going the right way, or if something is going wrong, Sun is going to throw a light, illuminate, and show that something is really wrong. And in a way, I feel like Saturn in Aries, as slow and as annoying that it can be, Sun's presence in Aries or co-presence with Saturn in Aries is going to kind of speed up the process, and suddenly we feel like we know what we are reconstructing and what we are basically kind
Mhm.
of doing. The existing realities around us, all those building blocks had crumbled with Saturn in Pisces, and with Saturn entering Aries, it is this moment where we are kind of left resourceless, depressed, but still we are also forced to kind of reconstruct something. And Saturn, in you know Aries conjunct Saturn is, sorry, Sun entering Aries, slowly kind of conjoining Saturn, is one of those moments where we pick ourselves up and get ready to move on as quickly as possible. So yeah.
Yeah, we hit this point of the conjunction that happened between then. There's certain things that happen politically. I think they'll be enhanced when the sun crosses
Yes.
over. We have a Mars Jupiter trine that's pretty much part of this that kind of like fuels this. So yeah, God, I have some relatives who have Aries birthdays and they drive me crazy, and I would never say publicly that I'm excited for an Aries birthday, but I am. I'm like, okay, come on, ready, let's give this to me. And there's nothing like that feeling If you learn anything from Aries people in your life or stuff, or you're talking with them, and sometimes you're sitting on the couch, or you're not feeling it, and they come bursting through the door and they challenge you. They'll challenge you, like, come on, get off, like, let's go this, and like, no, I don't want to, and like, just pull you off, come on, like just Geminis could do this too, but like Aries energy could do this, and then you're out, you leave the door, and you're going somewhere, you don't even know where you're going.
Yeah.
You're just going, and then they challenge you to a race on the way to the grocery store, like you're walking. I'm gonna beat you there. Like, why? We're just walking to the grocery store, and they got to make it a competition. It's like they got to test themselves. They got to test themselves against me or in the world. And so that energy, that feeling, when it comes to deciphering or indecision or whatever, at some point we take the leap, and we have to take the leap. And, a theme on this channel, and I'll say it quick, we talk about the bridge. I've talked about the train and getting on the train and shedding tears of the water of the past, but you still got to get on the train. You still have to go, and
Yeah.
you'll process it while the train is leaving.
Yeah.
What came up for you, Ashwin, when I said that?
No, I was just kind of trying to remind you that while you're talking about grocery store, think about going to the grocery store trying to buy some apples, and you end up paying for the apple, but you come home and see that there is no apple; it's just oranges. Sun, because Neptune is also uh, there in Aries.
Yeah. You weren't even paying attention. Is that what you're saying? You're just grabbing things? I didn't, I'm at the grocery store. Or that somebody was like, "Oh, I got the best apples." And then they put oranges in the bag. You weren't even paying attention. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
That's
I think
that's really good.
I think that's done. Nothing.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
And
Uh
as much as it is funny, Mercury turns direct, making it even more funny.
yeah. Put this up on the screen here. We're dealing with by the way, it's the equinox, where we're dealing with the sun going in
Yeah,
Aries, the equinox. Um, uh, Spring in the northern hemisphere, fall in the southern hemisphere. But yeah, Mercury turns direct. Right with the node there, Ashwin.
exactly the note. So yeah, I think it's important to be careful if people are kind of looking for some agreements or contracts or something. This is not necessarily a good period. It is almost certain that you should wait for, if there is an opportunity, it is better that you wait to make any contracts or agreements. It is better to kind of avoid buying and selling. For instance, if you are having a YouTube channel, or if you're planning for a YouTube channel and you're thinking of buying a microphone, just hold off for a week or
Yeah,
two.
yeah. No, that's a great example. That's a great example. I remember here, this is the 20th. But
Yeah,
we looked at the new moon on the 18th. This is stationary Mercury. This it's a theme through this whole time. So even on the new moon, if sometimes people are like new moon, I'm gonna launch this or I'm gonna do that, and I don't, this particular point in time here with conjunct the North Node. I like the example you gave about the microphone and YouTube thing, or you bought a microphone actually during the retrograde and you realize it broke and you have to return it, or it's not the microphone that you need.
well,
And realize
I mean, it's a personal experience. So
it's a per
I-
yeah.
yeah, Blue Yeti works wonders for everyone, but not for me, apparently.
Yeah, not for me either. And it picks up a lot of extra sound in the room, just so
Yeah,
people know.
that's
It'll pick up the like the stuff you don't want people to hear. It'll be a Mercury in Pisces retrograde. It'll sound like something's coming in, something else, and bumps, and the police car, the siren's gonna come in the middle of your stream. Yeah. But yeah, we have Mercury direct there at 8 degrees. Where are we going next there? I see.
yeah, I mean, I don't. Let's talk
Do
about
Sun,
Venus
Neptune.
enters Taurus.
Let's just make a note. On the 22nd, we'll do Sun conjunction with Neptune, the Aries Sun that we talked about. On the 25th of March, the Sun's going to do its conjunction with Saturn. At that point, at 4 degrees, Saturn's starting to move fast, Ashwin.
Yeah,
And then we're gonna go to the 30th, and it's Venus's ingress. Oh, this is what I can't wait for.
a nice ingress.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
really.
no nodal axis, no Saturn, no Mars. it's only Venus in Taurus. Enjoy your food as much as you can. It's like, you know, a few well-earned comforts after a long day.
Yeah. If you think about it, so we did Venus when we had Venus in Capricorn. Remember, we had the triple conjunction? Am I correct by this?
Yeah.
Or
No,
yeah.
yeah, that's
No,
right.
no. That was in January where we did Venus Mars in Capricorn,
Yeah.
right?
There were
Yeah.
four planets:
Yeah, there were four.
Sun, Venus, Mars, and Mercury.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how that for some reason came up in my head looking at this because I'm just thinking about Earth. But yeah, we get to have this. Um for the amount of astrology and how it's moving from Pisces to Aries and back and forth, and what we were talking about, but disillusionment or trying to discern or trying to understand the beginning of the month when we started with an eclipse and the mind, and you know, if we think about it, we have nothing in Earth here for a while, and we finally get to have something, or the Earth element involved here, where we can kind of like feel ourselves connected, and the pacing
Yeah.
of Venus and Taurus, of what it likes to do. It slows things down, um, stubbornly at times, but considering that
Yeah.
Venus is at home there. It likes simple,
Yeah. Sure.
straightforward.
It's like Bilbo Baggins finishing his 13-month long mission with the dwarves and coming back to the Hobbit hole to enjoy some good food and wine.
Yeah, and it takes them a little bit to adjust.
Yeah, it
Considering what
does.
happened on the journey there, you've been wishing to get to this
Yeah.
place, and then you back there, and he does that, and there's a celebrating and all that. But
Yeah.
there is an adjustment that happens.
There is a little bit of an adjustment because it's very funny and also uh, extreme because when the journey begins, Bilbo says to Gandalf, not to Gandalf, but to everyone, says that wait, we need to stop. I forgot my handkerchief, and and Gandalf says that we have to manage with a lot many things more than just the handkerchief.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's
then,
like
like
a little bit of an
then he comes
adjustment.
back, and then his not only maybe his handkerchief is there, but all the things that he values and possesses, and the
Yes,
Venus and Taurus realm. What's important. This is, when I think
Saturn.
about stuff like this, I think about like we work hard, we work in our lives, and we acquire money or resources, and then we pay the rent or a mortgage, whatever we have to do, the necessities, and then
Yeah,
we have something else left over. Hopefully, it's harder these days, but we have something and we purchase something, and we purchase that, and in a sense it's reflective of our hard work, right? It's representative of the work that we put in slowly over time, and we have this object. Let's say it's a Venetian type of object. It's a really nice bottle of wine, or
yeah,
it's a high thread count comfort sheets on the bed, or it's a nice couch, whatever it is. It's representative of whatever, of what we've worked for, and the
yeah,
reflection of that, right? And it's hopefully long lasting, and its worth, and can you not only that enjoy the fruits of that, but I'm the type of person, Venus person, that was like, well, I could sit here and I can enjoy it alone, and I have my moments, and I toast to what it is, and then, but something's missing. Something's missing to me, and it's like, well, who else could be here? You know, I could share this with, and invite over, and take a load off your feet and relax. Don't worry about everything else, and it's good food, you know, and the comfy couch. So, for me, if I think about the transits in the beginning of the year and what happens with people and what's happening politically, times and places we have to find a place to like take time to recognize what we've done or what we've built, or enjoy the many successes, right?
yeah,
And a lot of times we do that through material ends or through possession, or maybe it's not even material, Ashwin. Maybe it's a Venus and Taurus scenario where one meets someone for lunch. And not only is the food good, but it's at a cafe or it's in the garden, it's at the
Yeah.
park, right? You
Yeah.
know, and
It's the overall atmosphere of, finally feeling comfortable, right?
finally,
Yeah.
before we go back to work, but we have to have that space, and that
Yeah.
place to do it. So, considering the months that happen here in the first quarter of the year,
Yeah.
you know, I'm ready. I'm ready for that. And I think too, as we're going to go into April and, you know, Mars in the Aries, Mercury eventually in the Aries, we're going to have a Uranus station that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And Taurus, it's things at that point, I think start to become very clear, at least for a while.
Yeah.
And we cross that bridge. We're at the end of the other side. So,
Yeah.
yep. Yep.
The March thoughts are over with.
Yeah. Wow. We went on some tangents there. So,
It's fine.
yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
But
Ashwin, I got
yeah.
before we leave, Ashwin, I got to say something here
Yeah.
because
Go
I'm
ahead.
not the only one, but I think people watching, um, considering how important Mercury is in the month of March, and things don't have any boundaries and they
Yeah.
kind of move. But I do want to get the correct pronunciation of your last name because what's been happening to me lately is I've been having conversations with people, and then your name comes up, and then I try to pronounce it to them, and I feel like I'm not getting it right. And the reason why I'm doing this is because at the end of this forecast is a Mercury and Pisces thing. Like at the all of this, I want to see. I want to, if you can tell me, I want to hear it. And so on the next podcast,
Right.
let's see if I can do it. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Why not? It's
Okay.
Subramanyan.
So okay, wait. Subramanyan. Oh, wait a second. That's yeah. Why I was making it more than it was. Subramanyan.
Yeah.
Polimenakos. Subramanyan. Okay. Thanks, Ashwin.
Cool. Yeah. Nice. So finally, we're done with this forecast, and yeah, we have our own platforms. So obviously, everything is there in the description page, and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to reach out in case you want to. And yeah, be sure to check out capisar.org for uh, whatever trainings that you're willing to take. And with that, we'll see you in another episode. Thank you so much, Nicholas, for joining.
Yeah, no, thank you.